Good morning, boys and girls. Welcome to language lesson 160. We are going to begin with our oral language exercises. Then we are going to review our subject-verb agreement and those troublesome words and move on into a new concept. Then we're going to move into our thinking skills, and you do have homework tonight. So go ahead and repeat after me when you hear each sentence, please. I did it all by myself. He had done the whole job by noon. Has Dad come home yet? No, he has gone to work. Bill did the job well. They had gone by the time I arrived. Bob has always done his best. He had come up here often. If I had known, I would have gone with you. I should have gone, but I was too tired. Okay, great. You should have noticed in those sentences that there are a variation of verbs used concerning do, go, and come. So I want you to recall that same tune to mind that we've used in the past. Do, am, doing, did, have done, go, am, going, went, have gone, come, am, coming, came, have come. And I just want you to just repeat those tunes to yourself so you know the different parts of each verb. Okay? All right, so let's now go into a review with our subject and verb agreements and those troublesome verbs in the past. Here we have a few examples. The first one says, she is or are going to the store. I want you to choose the most appropriate verb. In this case, you would identify the fact that there's a singular subject, and so you would need a singular verb, which is. You know from time past that most singular verbs end with an S. Very good. Let's look at the next one. The birds in the tree does or do sing loudly. The birds in the tree do sing loudly. The subject in this case is plural, birds with an S, so you also need a plural verb to accompany it. The next sentence says, Mia and Andrea was or were at home. They were at home. You have a compound subject in this case. Here is or are 3 eggs in a nest. You, in this case, would need a plural verb because the subject happens to be eggs. We know that when sentences start out with here or there, it's never a subject. So you would find the subject following the verb in this particular case. The next one is one of our troublesome verbs, lie or lay on the couch. In this case, it would be lie because you are going to be in a reclining or restful position. You are not putting something down. The next one says, I am lying or laying my book down. In this case, you are placing an object on another. So it would be laying. Remember, whenever you use that particular verb, you can also identify a subject. In this case, the subject would be book. The next sentence says, the boy lay or laid on the couch all day. Again, he lay on the couch. He was in a restful position. The next sentence says, he lay or laid the book on the desk. Again, here, the individual is placing or putting something down. So it would be laid. Remember, the verb laid is always associated with putting or placing. The next sentence says, the tree has lain or has laid there for years. In this case, it is resting there. So it would be has lain. The next sentence says, no one except Sarah may come. Now you need to think to yourself, is this an action? Is this a preposition? Here it would be a preposition. Everyone excluding Sarah may come. The next sentence says, I sit beside or besides her in school. In this case, you need a word that would identify that you're sitting next to the individual. So it would be beside without an S. The next sentence says, there are less or fewer jelly beans in the jar today. You would use fewer in this case because it is countable. Remember, when something is countable, you use fewer. When it's measurable, you use less. The next sentence says, please wait on or wait for me by the door. This does not involve service, so the most appropriate phrase would be wait for. And finally, your attitude will affect or effect those around you. Isn't that so true? Like, which one is correct? It is affect. In other words, your attitude will influence those around you. Very good. Hopefully these are becoming easier and easier as time goes on. And talking about that, we mentioned in previous lessons that this English language can be so puzzling at times. And eventually, just to encourage you, that puzzle will fit together. You will notice that the pieces will eventually come into place as time goes on. And we know that happens with constant practice. So hopefully you're completing those worksheets and you're revisiting those resource pages that are extremely helpful to you. Okay, now we are going to get into our new concept for today, and it involves the word it's. Now, it's is a possessive pronoun, and you're thinking to yourself, why doesn't it have an apostrophe? Well, possessive pronouns actually do not have apostrophes, and we have a couple of examples that are following this sentence. It says, the hummingbird built its nest of bark and grass. Again, whose nest is it? The hummingbird's. But notice it does not have an apostrophe. Its wings produce a sort of low hum. Whose wings? The bird's wings. Its wings. Again, it does not have an apostrophe. However, it's with an apostrophe is considered a contraction, and it's for the words it is. So there's going to be a little trick that I'll be teaching you today, and hopefully you pay attention and you're able to retain it. We have some examples that follows. It says, it's seldom seen. Now it sounds just like that previous possessive pronoun that we mentioned. However, you notice this one has an apostrophe. So what we would do in this case, we would separate the contraction, and it would become, it is seldom seen. If it's still sensible, then you would know that it is being used correctly. Let's look at a different example together. This little bird can perch on a blade of grass if it's tired. Let's read it with it separated and see if it's still sensible. This little bird can perch on a blade of grass if it is tired. Did that make sense? Yes, absolutely. So it would be correct. So whenever you are writing the contraction with an apostrophe, just replace it with the word it is, and if the sentence still makes sense, then you will know you are correct. And we're going to do some more examples together at this time. So I want you to choose the right word. The bird hurt its wings or its wing. The bird hurt its wing. Whose wing? The bird's. So would you say the bird hurt its wing? Would that make sense? No, it would not. And so you know that in this case, you would need a possessive pronoun, which is the one without the apostrophe. Let's look at the next example together. It says, it's almost time for lunch. It is almost time for lunch. Does that make sense? It actually does make sense. So we know in this case, we would use the apostrophe, and that would be IT apostrophe S for that particular sentence. And here you have those answers that are followed. Okay, what I would like for you to do at this time is direct your attention to worksheet page 246. You will notice the blue box at the top. It says, its is a possessive pronoun, and there are some examples that follow. And then it continues by saying, when you must choose between its and its with the apostrophe, fit the words it is in its place, as we just discussed. So if the sentence makes sense, then you know the answer is it is, and it is correct. Let's look at think A and think B together. Think A is asking you to write its in the blank, the correct one, of course. Number 1, blank going to be a beautiful day. Which its should we use in that case? It is going to be a beautiful day. So we would need the contraction, it's, I-T apostrophe S. Very good. Let's look at number 2 together. It says, the trapdoor number 2. The bird built blank nest in a tall tree. The bird built its nest. You need a possessive pronoun in this particular case, and that would be the one without the apostrophe. Very good. So you're going to complete those exercises on your own, and we are going to now move into a different word. And that word is your. So just like its, we have the possessive pronoun and we have the contraction that is soon to come. So your, Y-O-U-R, is a possessive pronoun. Here we have some examples of how it's used properly in context. It says, the frost bit your toe. Whose toe? Your toe. The next example says, is that your car parked down the street? Whose car? Your car. Now you'll notice there's a difference between that your and the your we're going to cover now, which represents a contraction. So Y-O-U apostrophe R-E is a contraction for you are. Some examples follow as to how this is used correctly in context. Did you say that you're going to? Let's replace your with you are and see if it still makes sense. Did you say that you are going to? Does that make sense? Absolutely. Let's look at the other one. You're the best class in the world. Amen to that. I know Miss Best would also agree. So let's go ahead and replace the contraction with the phrase you are. You are the best class in the world. Does that still make sense? Yes, absolutely. So let's go ahead and do some examples, and this time I want you to choose the correct word. Where is your book? Which your would you use in this case? Would you use the possessive form or the contraction? If you said the possessive form, you are correct. So that would be your, Y-O-U-R, without the apostrophe. We wouldn't say, where is your book? That wouldn't make any sense. Okay, let's look at another one. You're the only one who is going. Would you need a possessive form or the contraction in this case? You would need to use the one with the contraction. Let's go ahead and separate that contraction and see if it would make sense. You are the only one who is going. Now that sounds sensible, so you'll know that you chose the correct one. Very good. And there you have your answers that are circled for you. What I'd like for you to do at this time is direct your attention to worksheet page 247. And at the very top, you'll notice that it reviews what we just went over together. I want you to direct your attention to think A and B as well as C. For think A, it says write your in the blank. Let's go ahead and do the first couple of examples together. Number 1 says, is that your grandmother in that photograph? Ask yourself, is this showing possession? And if so, you would choose the word without the apostrophe, or would it need a contraction? Let's see. Is that your, Y-O-U-R, grandmother in that photograph? That would be correct because it is your grandmother. Okay, so possession is necessary. It would not make sense if we said, is that you are grandmother in that photograph? If you're laughing, you should be, because it does not sound right at all. Let's look at number 2. You're the one who has the key, aren't you? In this case, you would need to use the contraction. Let's read it with those words separated. You are the one who has the key, aren't you? And you would say to yourself, well, that's sensible. So be sure that you're writing the your with the apostrophe for number 2. For think B, it's basically asking you to write correct in the blank if the sentence is correct. And if the sentence is incorrect, you are going to write the word which should be used. So in other words, you're going to correct it. Then you would ensure that you underline the incorrect word. All right. And for write C, you are going to write 8 sentences on a separate sheet of notebook paper. You're going to use your, Y-O-U-R, for the first 2 sentences. Then you're going to use the contraction form of that for the next 2 sentences. After that, the next 2 sentences, you will be using it's, the possessive form, and it is the contraction. Okay? Go ahead and enjoy writing those creative sentences. I look forward to hearing them in the future. You do have homework tonight, and you will be completing think A and B on page 248. It's looking back to some of those troublesome verbs and words that you came across. So you are just going to do what it says for think A. You're going to write the correct form of lie, lay, sit, or set in the blanks. And for think B, you're going to fill each blank in with either laying or lying. And hopefully that you've been practicing those things and it's eventually, as I said earlier, coming together for you. All right, I do hope that you have a lovely day. Goodbye.